Welcome back to World News Media. The topic at hand today is the notion of black people abandoning the Democratic Party due to broken promises and a widespread perceived neglect. This is a complex and deeply rooted phenomenon that reflects both historical grievances and current complaints of overlooking the black plight in hopes of securing new incoming voters. Throughout history, the Democratic Party has often been seen as failing to adequately address the needs and concerns of black Americans, despite relying heavily on their support during elections. This sentiment is particularly magnified in the wake of Joe Biden's presidency, where many feel that promises made to the black community, especially regarding equitable opportunity, racial justice and police reform, have been left unfulfilled just as they were during 8 years of the Obama presidency. One of the key complaints among black voters is the long-standing pattern of the Democratic Party prioritizing the interests of other demographic groups over theirs. Despite black voters being one of the most loyal and consistent voting blocs for the Democratic Party, there is a perception that their concerns are often sidelined in favor of swing voters or catering to more radical ideals within the party. This has led to a sense of betrayal and frustration among many black voters who feel overlooked and taken for granted by the party they have supported for several generations. Joe Biden's campaign, which heavily emphasized issues of racial justice and police reform, raised hopes among many black voters that his presidency would usher in meaningful change. However, since taking office, there has been a growing sense of disappointment and gaslighting as progress on these fronts has been pretty much non-existent. From the failure to pass comprehensive police reform legislation to the lack of significant action on addressing systemic racism, many black voters feel let down by the Biden administration's response to their concerns, especially when he was quick to impose a hate crime law for Asians, who have not suffered nearly as much as black people in this country. Moreover, there is a broader historical context to black disengagement with the Democratic Party. Throughout much of the 20th century, the Democratic Party in many southern states actively disenfranchised black voters through tactics such as poll taxes, literacy tests, and outright intimidation. Even after the civil rights movement led to the enfranchisement of black voters, there has been a consistent pattern of the Democratic Party failing to fully address the systemic inequalities and injustices faced by black Americans, even to this day. In addition to broken promises and historical grievances, there is also a recognition among many black voters that the Democratic Party's outreach efforts can often feel insincere or superficial. Many have stated that their playbook does not change, mostly due to the same tactics being used, such as propping up black faces to speak on their behalf to garner a sense of unrelatability. During election years, there is a tendency for Democratic candidates to engage in what some have described as pandering to black communities, with a focus on outreach through radio stations, churches, and other cultural institutions. While these efforts may be tactically successful, they often come across as tokenistic or transactional, leading to further disapproval among black voters. As a result of these factors, there has been a growing movement among many black voters to reassess their relationship with the Democratic Party and explore alternative political options. Black people are beginning to do their own research on the party and the history of broken promises, overlooking grievances, and lack of inclusion regarding equally dispersing resources and creating opportunities for empowerment. This has led to an increased interest in third-party candidates, as well as the Republican Party, as calls for greater accountability and representation within the Democratic Party appear to have gone unheard for so many decades. While the decision to abandon the Democratic Party is not one that is taken lightly, it reflects a broader desire among many black voters for genuine change and meaningful engagement from political leaders. Black voters are now demanding that they receive something in return for their vote, as they will no longer be voting as they are expected to simply on the basis of fear-mongering or perceived racism promoted by media outlets.